Okay, I'm just gonna start it now.
Okay.
All right, so, woo, you say?
Age mark.
Oh, perfect. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Kim Flores. I am a resident in this community. Like, wait, smoke screen. I'm a resident in this community. I'm also a board certified nurse practitioner. Yes, I need all of that right now because my skin is so dry. Board certified nurse practitioner, certified nutrition coach. I do own a health and wellness coaching company that is nutrition focused. So over the past few months, I know a lot of you have already been here before, but we have started doing these cooking demonstrations where I really like to showcase what we're growing in our gardens and apply it to real life recipes. Not only because we need to use the food in the gardens, but also it's a really great way to one, be connected to the earth and to this community. And these nutrients that are these ingredients that are coming from our gardens a lot of times are way more nutrient dense than anything you're gonna find from the grocery stores. What I mean by that is, I could probably go to the grocery store right now and find some purple kale, but because we grow it here in smaller batches in more nutrient dense soil, these are gonna have a lot more antioxidants, a lot more nutrients, minerals, etc., because the soil is richer versus getting it from a grocery store. It's gonna be mass farmed. Therefore, the soil is not gonna be as nutrient dense. Therefore, the food itself is not gonna be as nutrient dense. Now, before I go any further, I am gonna start boiling the pasta because I don't want you guys to sit here for 15 minutes waiting on the pasta to be done. But let me get that started and I'll keep talking because I can't do two things at once. I try and I feel miserable.
And this pasta is gluten-free.
I was going to
Yes.
ask, is there any kind of special recommendations
So we got gluten-free pasta just in case anyone is gluten-free, so it's free for the taking. And bonus, it's chickpea pasta, so it's also a lot more protein rich than regular pasta. It's got about half the amount of carbs. You could easily add, more chicken or something like that to this dish to increase the protein into it. Now, what I'm gonna have you do as my sous chef is watch the pasta because if I try to do it, I will probably overcook it.
Okay.
So basic rule of thumb for pasta is when you cook it, you wanna boil it for about 6 to 7 minutes to al dente. If you've ever heard of that, that's like the optimal way to cook pasta where it's soft on the outside but still has that texture to it to where it's not turning to mush in your mouth. That's what al dente means. Now, back to the recipes. So today we're going to be showcasing the purple kale that is coming from our gardens. I just got this fresh 2 days ago from Faye, so it literally was pulled from Faye's One Gardens. This is, I think she said it's going to be harvest maybe for another 2-3 weeks. Depending on how hot it gets, it might burn it all off and bolt it. But we do still have a little bit left, so you can still grab some from the fridge the next time she harvests. Now, what I love about purple kale, I don't know why I'm holding this, like it's a prop. What I love about purple kale, it is super rich in antioxidants. The purple part that you see in the stem, the purple is mostly in the stem of it, if you can see that far away. The ingredient that makes it purple like this is called an anthocyanin. It's a very powerful antioxidant. What is an antioxidant when we talk about that? I know it's probably a word you've heard before. Antioxidants help to grab free radicals within our body. Free radicals is what causes damage to our cells and to our DNA. One of the most common things you will see happen from oxidative stress and free radicals is cancer. And cancer is running rapid in the United States and in the world now, a lot of it because of the food that is being produced and not produced and highly processed in our food system. So whenever you are eating something that is high in antioxidants like the anthocyanins in purple kale, it also is in beets, cranberries, what else is purple? Rhubarb, other purple cabbages, anything that you see that has like a blue or a red tint to it has anthocyanin. What?
Eggplant.
Eggplant, yes, because it's purple. Yeah, so that's one of the biggest benefits to kale. Now moving on to cherry tomatoes. Tomatoes in general is very high in another antioxidant called lycopene. Sure, you've seen it on ketchup bottles before. Now, fun fact about the lycopene, it is more released and absorbable in our bodies when it is cooked. So you're gonna get, not that you're gonna get more lycopene out of a tomato when you cook it, but your body is going to absorb it versus if I were to just take the cherry tomatoes and pop them in my mouth. Not to say that you can't eat tomatoes raw. It's not bad for you. You're just gonna get more of the lycopene when it is cooked. Now, one of the biggest things that lycopene is good for is, again, cancer, because it's an antioxidant, it helps to break down free radicals. One of the big ones that's been studied extensively is for prostate cancer. They actually utilized the use of tomatoes as a medicine, giving men very high doses of lycopene-rich tomatoes, and it actually increased remission rates from prostate cancer. So we do have proof that the ingredients in these types of foods really can be used as medicine. Any questions so far? Did you set a timer?
No, but I looked at the time.
Okay,
In
so
my
you're
head.
watching the pasta. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. For the sake of saving everyone time, because I know you have things to do on your beautiful Sunday afternoon, because it is gonna warm
Saturday.
up a little bit.
Saturday.
What did I
Saturday.
say,
Don't you
Sunday?
take
Sunday.
Saturday away from
Yeah.
Sorry, guys.
Don't fast forward too quickly.
Sorry, guys. I have chopped mostly everything, but I saved some in case there was anyone in the audience that wanted to volunteer to help me. Any takers? All right, so no, I got someone in the back. He was the only one that raised his hand, so please come up here. You can feel free to help.
Celebrity chef.
Yeah,
Yes,
so
he is.
we're gonna remember all the things we learned last month, starting with hand hygiene. We're gonna wash our hands first. And just so you guys know, I did wash my hands before we started this, so my hands are already clean. So we are going to roughly chop the kale. Now, this is one of the things that you can do based on preference. The recipe itself, and just so you guys know, if you scan this QR code here, the recipe is gonna be at the very top. You can just link it and it's to go straight to the blog and the recipe. It says to finely chop it. So what you'll see is the stem is still intact and the leaves are still intact. Some people don't prefer that big crunch, and I tried to break it down so it's not like a mouthful of stem, but if you wanted to, you could de-stem the kale and cook with it. Now, if you were to de-stem the kale, what you would do is take the kale leaf. I promise I'm gonna use you in a second, I didn't forget about you. You're gonna take the kale leaf and you're simply gonna pick the leaf off of the stem. It's essentially what it says, de-stemming, and then you'll throw the stem away. But this is such a good part of it, and it's the pretty purple part, and this is packed with fiber. And fiber is a prebiotic, helps you poop. Yes, I'm gonna bring it up, and I'm gonna bring it up in every single cooking class because that's what I talk about and it's what I'm good at. So, but there's still fiber in here, but the crunchy part of it, that's the fiber, and it acts as a broom that kind of works its way through your intestinal tract. You don't necessarily digest it, but it does work to help help your good bacteria in your gut feed off of it and help move things along, especially if you struggle with constipation. Eating the stem is going to be a really great way to improve the constipation. Now, let me get off my soapbox of poop. Some people are uncomfortable with it, and that's okay. So what I'm going to have Xavier do is chop the kale roughly chopped, because that's how I have it for demonstrative purposes. So what you're going to do is just you don't have to chop all of this, just take a handful of it because I've cooked or chopped most of it. And this is gonna be really easy. You're gonna take your hand just like this, and remember all the cooking skills we went over last night? You're gonna hold it like a bicycle handle, remember that? And you're just gonna chop it. And you're gonna move your hand out of the way. You need to keep your eyes on the prize. Do not let your eyes leave where you're chopping because you'll end up losing a finger or five, okay? So I'm gonna give you this. Do you remember what hand you chop with?
My right.
Okay, so you're gonna be opposite of what I did. So you're gonna hold it like this and you're gonna chop from this side.
Alright.
That's okay. You can do like 1, 2, maybe like 3 chops through. All you, bro. Watch your fingers. Don't get too close.
Yeah.
There you go. Perfect.
Yeah.
He acts like he's done this before. There you go. And that's the great part about this recipe is you can get the family involved in this, because it's not one of those, I was just telling this to Neve, it's not one of those recipes where like if you put a little bit too much kale or not enough in it, it's gonna completely destroy the recipe, right? All right, I think that is perfect. Now, that is roughly chopped. It's really like no rhyme or reason, you just chop right through. If you want a big leaf like that, great. If you want a tiny leaf like this, great. That's what roughly chopped is. Now, again, if you don't like stems, you can just pick it out because we're eating stems today. And then with the cherry tomatoes, what we're gonna do is slice them in half. So we have this done. And then you're just gonna chop these right down the center. So be very careful with your fingers. We can chop like 3 or 4. So with tomatoes, you wanna saw it a little bit because sometimes it'll explode on you like that. Okay, I'm gonna have you do 2 more. Do the back and forth before you push. There you go. You see how it opens up a lot easier?
Mm-hmm.
Try it again. Here, one more for good luck. Before you push, try to just saw it so it has like an open. There you go. You see how much easier that is?
You ever heard of that?
And that way it won't explode in your
It's a real
face.
thing.
The ceiling.
Yeah. Needs a little bit longer.
Should I
no,
do it on the
it's
face?
no,
Yeah.
it's gluten free. It only works with gluten pasta.
Ah, that's right.
Hey,
She cheated. She hung it over the side.
There you go.
Yeah, the gluten-free hangs, actually.
Yeah, they just change.
All right, the last
Why did I
ingredient
wanna
that I
throw
forgot
that
to
so
mention
badly?
in this dish,
Maybe
by
it doesn't
far
matter.
my favorite is the garlic, which I've already pre-chopped. Now, with the garlic, I realize I'm out of my seam. With the garlic, you can coarse chop it like I have. Not the prettiest, but gets the job done. And I actually prefer it a little more coarse because I want to get a mouthful of garlic. If you don't want to get a mouthful of garlic, I highly recommend not chopping it and either using something like a garlic press, which is a really convenient tool that, you know, I should have by now, but in my adult years, I have not purchased one. Or you could do something else, like if you were, I mean, I would only recommend this for a large amount. You could do like a food processor or something like that if you have a smaller one. But otherwise, you can fine chop it. Now, what is the benefit of garlic? Garlic has this amazing ingredient in it called allicin. And allicin has a very strong antimicrobial component. Going back all the way to the early 1500s, before antibiotics ever existed, garlic was used as an antimicrobial to treat, I'm in the steam again, to treat things like cholera, typhoid, dysentery, all of those things. Garlic was all they had, and it actually was effective. And so I don't know if you've ever heard of anything like fire cider, where people are like taking whole cloves of garlic and then putting it in honey and then taking a spoonful of it when they're sick, because it actually does have antimicrobial properties. Has been shown not to completely get rid of strep throat, but it does have also anti-inflammatory properties. So if you do have a sore throat and you like eat something that has a lot of garlic in it, it can actually help soothe your sore throat. Same thing with oregano. Oregano has powerful antimicrobial properties, and there's one more that you can use, thyme. Thyme has anti-inflammatory properties. So that's like my favorite thing when I'm sick and I have a sore throat specifically, is just to throw a whole bunch of thyme in water, soak it and drink it as a tea, and within hours, my sore throat feels so much better. Squeeze a little bit of lime in it, it tastes really good too, as long as you like thyme. Now, best part, let's get to cooking. So this is on, right?
Yes.
Now, if you go to the recipe, it's going to have specific ingredients. Do as I say, not as I do. I'm eyeballing today because it's more fun like that, and it makes me look more professional, like I've done this before. So what I will say with the olive oil, it's not necessarily a measurement because it depends on the size of your pan, but the first thing you're going to do is heat this pan up. I'd say like to medium-high heat, because we are going to be sauteing, is to evenly coat a thin layer of olive oil into the bottom of the pan. You can go sit down now if you want, but thank you so much for your help. Everyone give him a round of applause for cutting like a professional.
This may be done now.
Okay.
Do you want me to drain it or?
Please.
Okay.
So I am just coating the base of this pan, making sure to get all the edges so nothing sticks. Now, going in order of operations, if you ever want to cook a recipe, you don't want to have to be staring at the recipe the whole time of like, oh, order of operations, what do I need to throw in the pan first? Think about the more crunchy, harder ingredients should go in first. So in this recipe, I'm going to put in the garlic first, because you definitely want to put that down so okay, I see you.
Right behind. This is kitchen etiquette.
Yes. Isn't that hard? So I'm gonna put the garlic in first. I didn't think this through. I should have put this in a dish before I did this, but that's okay. We're gonna wing it. So I got all my garlic, a nice sizzle. And the other beauty of putting this in first is it's gonna release that aroma into all of the olive oil, so you can get more of the garlic flavor in the whole dish. I'll use this. Can I use, you were using this for pasta? Can I use this for, yeah. Okay, perfect. I'm just gonna roll this around. You wanna cook this by itself until you see a little bit of browning on the garlic. And in just a moment, you guys should start to smell it. I don't wanna want to say pungent because that's got a negative connotation to it, but the pungent aroma of garlic that everyone knows. Like you know it when you smell it, right? I'm gonna let that cook down a little bit. And then between these two, if I'm gonna cook the hardest ingredients first, what would I put in next?
Kale.
Kale. Good job. You get a sticker. So let me brown just a little bit more. And hopefully by smelling this, it gets you guys hungry because y'all gotta eat all this before we go home. And then I'm gonna put in, so the recipe I think calls for 7 ounces of kale. Again, we're gonna eyeball it. It's a lot of kale, but also remember that kale cooks down. So you'll start with a lot. It's kind of like spinach. You'll start with a lot, then it'll cook down. I'm actually going to leave a little bit because I want to keep the purple. Sometimes with the purple in the kale, it'll cook down and that purple will go away. To make it pretty, I'm going to leave some towards the end so it's still a little fresh and has purple in it. And so basically what we're doing right now is just cooking it all down, lightly coating. You want to coat all of the kale so that it's not half coated with olive oil and half of it is dry. Give this a few minutes to cook down. And again, the amount of time that you use to cook this is really just going to depend on your preference of how crunchy you want everything. Some people like their veggies still almost raw. Some people like their veggies mushy. So if you want a mushy, just cook them for an extra minute or two. I'm staying on the crunchy side today, so I'm going to add in the tomatoes. Keep losing the spot. It's like
Do all of y'all have induction stovetops? No?
No, they didn't put them in the house.
That's not an automatic. That's probably an upgrade. A pricey upgrade.
So y'all have just like the standard kind of like
Glass top.
glass top, but it's just not an induction. It's still okay.
That's correct.
Perfect. Okay.
All right, so I've added tomatoes in. The next thing I'm going to do to start creating somewhat of a sauce. Did you completely drain that? Because I forgot to tell you to leave some. But that's okay. Is there
I
any
mean,
pasta
we
water in
may
it?
have some.
That's okay. What you can do to kind of create a sauce is to add the pasta water in because it's going to be more flavorful. If not,
Always say something.
like a tablespoon. That works. And then it calls for wine. Now, don't worry, no one's going to jump on my watch, I promise. This is still a kid-friendly recipe. The beauty about alcohol is when you cook it, the alcohol burns off. So we're using it basically just for the flavor. Now, if you have an allergy to alcohol or you just want to play on the safe side, you can always use like a white wine vinegar. It'll work. It's going to be a little bit more twangy than using like the actual wine itself, but I want to assure you, because I know there are people of not age here, when we cook it, it's going to cook off the wine. Okay, so I think it calls for 2 tablespoons. I'm going to eyeball it. Again, do as I say, not as I do. If you want to be exact to the recipe, you can follow it, but I'm just going to eyeball 2 tablespoons. Because it makes me feel like a chef. Let's be honest. So we're going to let that cook down for a few minutes. How do I turn this up? No, maybe in like 6 more months, I'll finally have remembered how to do this. So I just press the number.
Yeah, whichever burner you want, and then whatever number.
So then when I'm done and I want to turn it back down, I just press the number that I want to go to. Okay. So I'm turning it up because essentially I want to cook down that alcohol, make sure there's nothing left in it, and really get the flavor from it. It calls for a white wine. Today we used a Chardonnay
from France.
Because we're bougie,
We're
and that's
bougie.
how we roll.
And if you guys actually want a glass of the wine, please have some because
There's
it's
a lot of
opened
it.
now.
That is true.
Yes.
can't-
If
you can't say
anybody
it
wants
for
to,
you,
no
it's not
judgment. I don't want to waste it.
Yeah. But you could use any wine with this. You know, if you did have half a bottle, if you're one of those people that leave the half bottle of wine and doesn't finish it, you can use that, whatever is left over, or you could, again, just go for the white wine vinegar if you don't want to use alcohol at all. And what you're going to notice, especially after you pour in the tomatoes, because when you know how when you cook tomatoes, it kind of waters it down, so that's kind of pouring into the sauce as well. This isn't gonna be a cream-based sauce. It's not gonna be completely dry, but there is gonna be a little bit of juice left over. That's why we poured the pasta water in. But you can always add in extra stuff at the end. So if you wanted to pour a little bit more wine over it, you could. If you wanted to add heavy cream to this, you probably could make it into a cream-based sauce. But the beauty about this, with the very light sauce that it has, is that you can eat this hot or cold. I actually tried it. I experimented earlier this week. I tried it, ate it cold, and I was like, hey, that ain't bad. So I'm gonna do the shameless plug in case I forget later on, but if you wanted to let this recipe cool and get it while we still have it, because there's so much of it, there is some beautiful, amazing tasting lettuce right over there across the street in the fitness center, that you could put this on top of a bed of lettuce with the really light sauce and eat it as a salad, like a pasta salad with the pasta and the lettuce in it. Just a thought, because we also need you guys to eat the lettuce because it's amazing. So,
There's also red kale that was picked this morning.
and kale. Go get the kale for this recipe. It'll be tastier. So I'm just giving this a few more minutes to reduce down. Any questions so far? Who's gonna make this at some point?
Christina has a question.
Sure.
So, how do you know how long to do this? Like when you say reduce it down, like what am I looking for?
It's gonna be watery, and it depends on how much of the sauce you want. Like I could technically stop this right now because I see a little bit of fluid just.
Can you like tilt the pan to like show?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how I want to describe it. So you see how there's, if you want to stand up, there's some juice in the bottom there. It really just depends on how much juice you want. And if you wanted more sauce, you could pour more wine. You could pour more pasta water into it. You could do what I'm about to do more right now. And this is just because I like to cook a lot. I don't feel like there's enough oil in this. I want to add some olive oil to the, not that one, this one. Add some olive oil to the base of it so you can get more creamy taste and not just a watery type sauce. But again, this is all based off of preference. So if you want it a little bit more dry, you can do that. That's so smart.
Yeah, it needed a bigger surface area. We were cooking on
I
like
was
the
waiting
small
for that.
burner
That's what I
for
was
a
waiting
big
for.
pan. Yeah.
So I'm just gonna finish it off with a little bit more olive oil. If you didn't want that many fats in it, you can make it more watery. This is one of those recipes where you really can base it off of how you want it to taste. Now, the last thing I'm gonna do is add some salt and pepper. Again, that's to your taste. If you like a lot of pepper and salt, great. If you don't wanna put any in it, you don't have to. So I'm just gonna put some in right now. Process done, right?
Yes.
Okay.
We've upgraded. I don't know if y'all were at the last cooking demos, but we're using little salt and pepper packets. So I've upgraded us. We are legit now.
Learn from experience.
Yes. There's your salt.
Put a little salt. Now we're cooking.
Yeah.
Stir it up one more time. So there's two ways you can do this. In the recipe, I think it called for putting the feta cheese in now. If you want the feta cheese to kind of melt into itself, you can do that. But because we only have this tiny little one and I want everyone to like be able to taste the fresh feta, I'm gonna sprinkle it over top, more of a garnish. But if you wanted to add in more, you could throw some in right now so it kind of melts into the sauce, makes it like a cheesy sauce, and then you can top it with more feta. You can never go wrong with feta. You can never have too much of it. It's really, really good. But for the sake of only having one of these, I'm gonna just save it as a garnish. So this looks done. What I'm gonna do, the very last one, and I don't think I mentioned this, and this is optional if you don't like basil, is top it with some fresh cut basil. I lucked out this week and had an amazing neighbor give me fresh basil. So this is fresh from their gardens, not our community gardens, but their gardens. So I have roughly chopped this, and I'm just gonna sprinkle this over the top. Hopefully, do you guys like basil? Okay, because I know some people, it's like cilantro, either you love it or you hate it. Okay, so I'm gonna top it with some fresh basil. Basil is very aromatic. A little bit goes a very long way. So again, optional if you don't wanna add it, you can omit it, but it does taste really, really good. I also experimented earlier this week with different spices. It tasted phenomenal with rosemary and thyme. And for you guys, because I know you go to the gardens, I also threw it at the very end. There is a bush in the bee gardens in phase 1. It looks like grass, but it's growing like a bush. Like round and it kind of sprouts. It looks like grass, but it's a type of onion. Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
When
It's
you're
at the
saying the
end.
bee gardens, what do you mean?
Here's the fennel. That's all.
It's not fennel.
It's not the fennel.
Oh, it might be actually at the end of the fennel. It's like a, so when you turn into phase one,
Mhm.
you have the gardens on the left,
Yep, the larger
trees
one.
are in the front?
Yeah,
and then across is B,
okay.
where there's like a little tiny
You
jungle.
got
That's the one
A,
that's-
B, and C.
That's
Okay.
the one corner west of the movement, right?
Across from Phil
Yeah,
is
across
is
from
B.
Phil's house, where the park is.
Across from Phil's house.
Yeah, yeah. Where the
I don't
park
Y'all
know. where
know.
it lives.
C is by the picnic tables, B is on the corner, and A is at the bottom of the townhouse.
Phil
It's
lives
C.
across from the garden.
It's C.
It's
It's
C.
garden C.
Closest to the picnic
It
tables.
looks like grass,
Oh,
but it's almost like a flat chive.
Oh.
And so I threw that on top of the very end, and that was tasty on it too.
There is some rosemary
Everywhere.
right here on
Yeah. I
the
used the
corner.
rosemary from the gardens too, and this tasted phenomenal with it. So this is the fun part that everyone loves, and this is where we're gonna combine it all together, and we get to eat. So I'm gonna eat pasta.
Pasta.
I turn that
I turned it
down
down.
at 1,
One.
just so it's still warm. So this is the very last step where you're gonna combine the pasta into the pan. It's the very last step because you want the noodles to all get coated. And at this point, it's not really cooking. So I turned it down to 1 so it's still warm, but it's not gonna be cooking anymore. Because again, depending on how formed you want your tomatoes, if you want them mushy, you can continue to cook it. But these should still have a little bit of a texture to them. Probably should be using tongs, but that's okay. We'll make this work.
You need what? Tongs?
Tongs is okay. I'm just gonna take my time.
and you shall receive.
It's so weird because I've cooked in this kitchen like 4 or 5 times now, but it's still, I'm used to cooking in mine where I have everything in its place, and kind of gets me out of sorts when I go to a new kitchen. But that's okay. So you can see in this dish, there's a decent amount of purple kale in it. But again, if you wanted to add more, you could. If you don't like that much kale and you want it more of a garnish, just put like a small handful. The ingredients that I have within the actual recipe of itself can easily be moved around. So if you do not cook in the kitchen a lot, let's say you're a novice, but you want to start cooking more meals at home, this is a great way to have a starter meal where, especially if you're using like a gluten-free chickpea pasta, you are getting a good combination of proteins, healthy fats with the olive oils. You're getting some healthy carbs, not just from the pasta, but from the vegetables themselves, because they do have carbs. Vegetables have carbs, but they're just very, very low carb. So it's a really well-balanced meal. And again, you could grill some chicken, slice it up and put it on top of this. That would be amazing. This might taste really good with olives, just because it does have this Mediterranean flair to it with the feta cheese. Again, these are just some add-ons that you could make into this recipe to kind of switch it up and add more flavor to it. Yes.
Could you also make a pesto with the kale?
100%, yes. So if you have a thing with textures, or if you wanted to, close your ears, hide this from the kids, and you want to eat the vegetables, you could grind up the purple kale into like a pesto sauce, where it's the kale, you throw in some olive oil, what else goes?
Basil
Basil.
and Parmesan, or a pine nut of some sort.
What she said.
Walnuts.
Walnuts. Yeah, I've used almonds. Like I've just made pesto with the nuts that I had
I've used
available.
pine nuts, that's the only
Yeah,
one I've ever
I think the
experienced.
actual recipe is pine nuts, Parmesan, and
Yes.
basil, and like salt.
But walnuts are a lot cheaper.
Yeah, and garlic. Yeah,
Yes, they are, for a tiny little,
and you can
Yes.
make pesto really out of any green. I've made a sauce out of like beet greens before, because it's like if I just don't know what to do with the green, or maybe I don't necessarily love the super earthy flavor, I'll just throw it in to a pesto, and it's like you're still getting it in your diet.
and you
It's
just
just
add more
hidden
salt and just hide it, and
salt
you got
and
your greens.
cheese.
Yes.
Everything's great.
Everything's better with cheese. Speaking of cheese, we are going to finally garnish this, and then we get to dig in. So hopefully this is as good as I cooked it earlier this week. And the garnish is just pretty. I like the garnish. And we'll definitely use the tongs to start doing this stuff that I have. Now, when you put this on top, because it is still hot, some of it will start to melt, but not so much as if you were to put it on earlier in the process. I'll start putting this in little dishes. We have enough forks for everyone?
Yes.
This smells so good. Now I'm hungry.
Serve us up.
Hold on. I
I'm
want to make
like
sure
excited.
I want everyone to get the even distribution of the feta. 'cause
Do
I
you
feel
like to
it's
cut
missing.
your noodles ever?
I did when I was a kid, but no longer. If you want to cut your noodles, we do have butter knives.
Okay.
And if you want seconds, feel free, because
Yeah.
there's not a lot of you.
Okay. I'll just.
So maybe I won't.
Xavier, you want to help
overload
us
the
pass
plate that much.
out? You're the best. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, my bad. I put a lot on that first one.
We'll just do a little
I want to make it more
tasters.
manageable. Just know you can come get seconds. Hold on, I want to make sure they get. Thank you.
Yep. Here, there we go. Hi there. How are you? Good. Good job.
Okay, 'cause I'm not cutting what's the letter.
Come join. There you
I'll make
go.
sure.
But hey, you're here for the important parts. I might have to grab more before. Whoa. Sorry.
Yes, so I'm gonna go home. Actually, let me stop the recording as we speak. I'm gonna go home and